any rights that are practiced by Native people are not benevolent gifts of a generous, overlording United States government, but have been retained from the beginning of time as a governmental asset that was retained for future generations, which today are you and I. Another stereotype that we encounter on a daily basis is that we are not modern, in that we are being shelved in the minds of many people. They equate our communities to, they're relegated to sitting on a shelf in a mental museum of the collective communities by which we are not allowed to progress to become working, successful citizens next to the John Q. public, that we have a responsibility to remain wearing war paint, riding horses, living in teepees. Why that is, that of all the communities that come from afar and foreign lands that are embraced into the United States, living the American dream, it seems that the Native people are always being left behind, that we are not allowed to progress forward in a positive way.
First of all, it's important to remember that consultation is not just informing us that an agency has made a decision, it's involving us in the decision process early on and from the beginning, giving us the opportunity to participate in that process. We may decide an issue isn't a priority or relevant for some reason, and we may not participate, but we need to be able to make that decision for ourselves first. Second, I think it's important to try to get to know the organization a little bit and understand who is most likely the best to contact. We have a number of relationships with local governments, cities, counties, state agencies, federal agencies, and so the amount of consultation requests we receive is tremendous. You know, if I wanted to consult on a salmon restoration project with Oregon, I'd take time to understand who in the Department of Fish and Wildlife or Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board I needed to reach to start the conversations, and then expect that we would elevate any issues that became policy issues as needed. So people really need to understand that it's going to be a lot more efficient if you invest some time up front to try to understand the organization a little bit, make sure you're contacting the right people, and then foster and maintain those relationships over time. And the consultation will be easier, I think more effective, and more efficient for both parties.
I just gave a presentation, and that was one of the first questions that was asked after our presentation is, as a government agency, how do we coordinate and work with tribes? And my answer is call them up and go to lunch. I mean, that's a good way to just start. You usually have professional overlap, you know, they're planners or you're working in transportation. Something is causing that, some kind of like linkage to have a conversation. So call them up, go to lunch, get to know each other, understand where everybody's coming from, and then work through whatever situation you're going through.
Consultation is very important to us because for my program, particularly the Cultural Resources Protection Program, we protect archaeological sites, we protect sites of cultural and religious significance to the tribes that include our first food gathering areas. So our root fields, our huckleberry fields, our fishing sites, and our hunting areas, and then also areas where we gather medicines and raw materials. And so, you know, today is to honor our children for the work that they're doing. They're now becoming providers of those foods for our community, for their families.
So here you go, 10 feet on the nose.
Yeah, no, I get it. Give them something to really work for.
I think about my past ancestors and where they went to, where they traveled to, and what they were there for. They were there for those first food resources, those raw materials to live upon and sustain upon. And so we continue that practice today And so I'm there to help consult to make sure that my children, my grandchildren, and their grandchildren are able to go back to those places that are important to us to gather those foods. Consultation is an opportunity also for state agency representatives to learn more about the tribes. And so really starting from the ground, they need to learn about us and not just depend on us to tell them who we are and what's important to us. And so really doing their homework and maybe reading some books that we have published would be helpful, learning about our history, our culture, and not being afraid to come here to the Umatilla Indian Reservation and learn about us and really get to know us is important.
Consultation with tribes is a government-to-government basis where the agency meets with the tribe and discusses their proposals. This is more of a, like I said, clearinghouse of information, presenting it to the tribes and then gathering whether there's further interest to conduct those government-to-government meetings. It is important that agencies reach out to tribes to communicate with them about what actions they're going to take, what they're planning on doing, and involving tribes in the decision-making of land use actions and planned activities. We've seen a number of activities that we work cooperatively with state agencies to restore resources and accomplish the goals for both the agencies and the C2IR, such as working with Bonneville Power Administration, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife on our salmon restoration efforts in the Umatilla River and in other basins. The accomplishment of restoration of salmon to the Umatilla River after 70 years of extirpation is a great example of how we can work with our federal and state partners to get these resources protected. And I think if the agencies were able to reach out more to their staff and make them aware that this forum is available to speak to tribes, it might demystify some of the tribal consultation concerns that people might have for picking up the phone. If the agencies, the state and federal agencies, weren't willing to consult with the tribes or contact us and work directly with us, successful projects like that wouldn't be possible.